hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us again for Safe Money Radio. You might be listening on the radio. You might be listening to the podcast. I will tell you this, those of you that are actually logged on online or you're watching the podcast, this is going to be a special show in a different kind of way. Now, I have guests on all the time. If you've been listening to me for a while and I've been hosting for 15 years, you know that I have a lot of guests, but I've never had a guest like this before. So if you're watching, you see this smiling face over there on the screen. And if you think, hey, she looks a lot like him, well, you're welcome to the guest today. That's because she has my genetics. On the show today is my firstborn, my daughter, Autumn Brooke Newman. Here she is. Thank you for joining us today, Autumn.
You are so welcome. Thanks for giving me life.
That's right. Hey, if you guys have never listened to the show and it's your first time, we apologize from this standpoint. You're going to hear the goofy side of the Pistole family today. We're going to get to share and kind of joke and tease, but there's going to be some awesome information on the show. And so I'm so grateful that Autumn is with us. She actually worked with us in our business. You know, my father worked with us for many years. My daughter, Autumn, who's on the show today, worked with us. My son, Hunter, is an advisor, an investment advisor representative, and is on our staff and has a lot to do with the podcast, the behind the scenes and the editing and that sort of thing. So this is definitely a family affair. But Autumn, you broke my heart years ago. You met this man and changed your last name and you moved away. And now I have to go visit my grandchildren instead of having them right here. But no, tell everyone where you live right now and what you do. What is it that you do for a living? And we're going to be talking about why that's important to today's show for Safe Money Radio.
Yes. Well, I live in Warsaw, Missouri, so the Truman Lake area. I am the director for PFS, or Partnerships for Success. So I do youth and adult drug and alcohol prevention. The organization that I work for, we've got about 4,000 employees, and my team is very small. It's me and my assistant, but we cover 7 counties in Missouri, and
Wow.
we are very, very busy.
Yeah, and I know you're always telling me about the different events that you're hosting and being at the Capitol and different things that are going on in Jeff City. And so we're going to get into that on today's show. But I wanted you to know a little bit about her background and what she does, because believe it or not, you know, we're talking about money and finance and saving for retirement, but saving for retirement can begin. It could begin at age 1. It could begin at age 5, age 15. A lot of parents and grandparents are very actively involved in helping their children start saving for retirement. And I would say, hey, use a Roth IRA or something tax-free and build something for them. They've got to have earned income, of course, in order to make those contributions. But we talk about it starting from the very beginning and then going all the way up to this deemed age of, I guess, age 65 is what everyone has in their mind as retirement, even though that changes quite a bit. But why is it important to have Autumn on the show today? Because of the fact that she's my flesh and blood, my firstborn. She worked in our office, which I'm sure was an amazing experience for her. We may ask her about that. But she has a big knowledge and background of this business, but also she now works in the drug and alcohol prevention with teens, students, young adults. And that has a big impact on the economy of not only our state, our nation, our world, but for parents and grandparents. And we're going to be talking a lot more about that on the show today. So, Autumn, how long have you been doing what you're doing right now?
Yep, I'm about to celebrate 6 years. So I started in January of 2019. And I actually started off as a mental health first aid coordinator. I did that for about 1.5 years. And then an opportunity came up. This new grant was gifted to the organization I work for, and it was a manager's position. It was more in the realm of the things that I wanted to be doing, so I applied for it and I got it. And I've been doing that for the last almost 5 years. So yeah.
Wow. Yeah, and your husband, Ethan, my son-in-law, he's in the business too, right? You guys kind of work together. You have separate jobs, but work in the same organization.
Yes, when we first met almost 9 years ago, he had just started at our organization, and I was very envious of him because that was like the perfect place that I could see myself working at, and that's what I wanted to do. but there weren't any job opportunities at the time, especially right when we first got married. It wasn't in the cards, and I was patient and I waited and did my own things. I own my own photography business and kind of waited it out. And then this popped up and I jumped on it very quickly. So, and it's
And of
pretty
course,
cool getting to work with them.
yeah, absolutely. It's a family affair, and it kind of takes that corner of in today's world. It takes a team to raise children and grandchildren. Well, we're seeing pandemic type of issues with drug pandemics and all kinds of or epidemics, if you will. We're seeing all
Mhm.
kinds of stuff with opioids, with drugs, with alcohol, and how it's affecting our economy, how it's affecting parenting, how it's affecting grandparenting, families, and how they live together and how they struggle through these things together. So no one's untouched. It doesn't matter your background, how you were raised, where you went to school, what your faith background is. It does not discriminate. Drugs and alcohol and meth and opioids and all these things, they will attack anyone at any time. And it greatly impacts our economies and our families and our country and our world. So we're going to be talking about these things today and how that all impacts retirement planning. So if you're listening for the first time, we'll do this a few times throughout the show. Our number is 866-780-SAFE. That's 866-780-7233. And we really specialize in and focus on the safety side of retirement planning. Now, we do things that involve risk and greater returns, if you will. That's especially what my father and my son specialize in. You know, we lost my father 2 years ago. Hunter took on all of his clients, his 401ks, and he even deals with my 401k, and he deals with more of the risk management side. I really focus in on the safety side, the guaranteed income planning, and how those things can be affected by things in the budget that we weren't counting on, that we weren't planning on. And today's topic is going to be some of those things. So call us anytime. You can always ask for a copy of my best-selling book, Bulletproof, The Safe and Secure Retirement Income Plan. Our number is 866-780-7233, and there's always someone standing by to take your call. Okay, friends, thank you for joining us today. Now, we have on the show my daughter, Autumn Brooke Newman. She's with us. We were talking in the first segment about what she does for a living. And Autumn, what I want to do is get into some of the specifics of your job. Let's talk about, I know you've got this Too Good for Drugs program. So tell us about this
Yeah.
program.
Too Good for Drugs. It is an evidence-based program, or an evidence-based intervention, as we like to call it. Normally you are flown out to a different state to get trained by an instructor. So I was sent to Los Angeles 3 years ago, I want to say. I think it was 3 years ago. Augie was a baby. I remember it was the first time I left him for more than a day, and that was not fun.
Yep, I remember.
Yeah, wasn't a good trip. But I got trained in Los Angeles, and this program is school-based, so kindergarten all the way through 12th grade. I can teach any of those grades. I have not taught below 5th grade yet. Just
Okay.
hasn't been in the cards. Haven't been able to set that up with school yet. But 5th to freshman is really where it's very important and where it's
Yeah.
the most needed. So that's where my team has been over the years. Right now, I am teaching 4 different freshman classes on Tuesdays. I spend my whole day on Tuesdays right now with some freshmen, and it's been very eye-opening. And I can tell you right now, I don't mean to fearmonger or be negative. I like to look on the bright side of things, but I don't know that my kids will be going to public school after my experience with Too Good for Drugs. It's a great program. I'm very proud of it. It's a wonderful program, and I hope that I'm changing their lives in some aspect. It's not been very fun. These
Yeah.
kids are they're about to be driving. I mean,
Yeah.
they're 14, 15 years old, and they are so lost. And I don't blame the school administration, because it's actually a really great school district that I'm working with right now. I don't know if it's the parents to blame or the grandparents. I don't if it's this generation, but There, there's a really popular meme right now going on where it's this guy and he's just like, we're cooked. And
Yeah.
that's kind of how I feel every Tuesday that I walk in with these
Yeah.
freshmen.
Yeah.
I care about them a lot and I really want the best for them.
Yeah.
But they are giving me a run for my money.
Well, I will say this, those of you listening right now, I will sometimes, not very often, but I will talk about my former life. I've been doing what I'm doing now for almost 16 years. And in my former life for 17 years, I had a career in ministry and in family life ministry. So I worked with the very age that Autumn is talking about that she's teaching. And I will tell people now, as a matter of fact, I had someone from my past life from Oklahoma Christian University contacted me this last week. It's like, hey, Brad, can I talk to you? And they're getting near retirement and they've spent their whole life on ministry and focused on kids and youth ministry and family ministry. And they don't know anything about money or financial planning. So we had a great talk and they're asking how I was doing. I said, I will tell you the truth. Right when I retired from that side of life and moved on and made a transition, cell phones were just starting. They were just coming out. Kids were starting to bring them into classes that I was teaching. And I thought, there is no way in today's world that I could handle kids being in class, growing up in the world that they're growing up in right now with all that's happening in the government, in the world, in the economy, cell phones, websites, constant connectivity, lack of attention span, lack of education, lack of math, lack of training. Like I could go on and on. So I can imagine like this is like a stop and a plug today for our teachers, for anyone who's in a classroom, who's working with our kids. But remember, this kind of stuff that we're talking about is going to impact everything in the future economically. These people are going to have full-time jobs. They're going to go work for
Yeah.
someone. You're going to have to train them and
Yeah.
employ them and keep them hired. They're going to be contributing to the Social Security plan that we all have, or not, if they choose just not to work today. So very, very interesting stuff that we're talking about. Now, to talk about one other thing real quick. I know that you go to gas stations and grocery stores. What do you do?
Yes.
You're probably not the favorite person when they see you drive up. Tell me what you're doing when you pull into these locations.
Yeah. So I'm doing compliance checks.
Okay.
And in the past, I've had a temp worker who was over the age of 21 because I didn't want to deal with all of that. But he looked younger. And so
Okay.
we were able to go in and he would pick up either a case of beer, or alcoholic beverage of any sort, and he would maybe pick up a bag of chips, just kind of be really relaxed, go up to the counter. I would try to make it look like I wasn't with him, so I would kind of follow him around the store, see when he was going to go up to the counter, and then I would get in line right behind him with a bag of chips, candy, something like that. And he would go try and check out. And if they carded him, he would step aside and I would hop up and say, hey, I'm with such and such organization. Thank you so much for doing your part, keeping Missouri underage safe. Thank you for doing this. Here's a little gift card. Here's a bag for my organization. Thank you so much. I really
Yeah.
appreciate it. Then I get to walk out with a smile on my face and mark off, yes, green. They did it. They passed the test. In certain situations, they don't card.
Right.
And I have to hop up and say, hey, I'm not a cop. I'm not law
Yeah.
enforcement. I'm not here to take you away, but I'm kind of here to slap you on the wrist. And this is why this is important.
Yeah.
He could have been 18, 17, 16,
Yeah.
gone home, drank, gotten in the car again, gotten in a wreck, killed himself, someone else hurt someone, whatever the case may be. And
Yes.
it could have been because you decided to not card him. So we need to be keeping our students safe, our underage adults is safe. And so that's, there's been a few places I've had to revisit because
Mhm.
they've had so many, what I call red cards with me. I
Right.
finally got a few of them to turn the page to the green card. A few of them just simply just don't care and
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
just don't card. But I've had really great success with that because there is a survey that's done every 2 years called the Missouri Student Survey. And
Okay.
in those counties that I've done those compliance checks over the last 5 years, we have watched underage drinking go down. It's been really cool to see that.
Yeah.
And I think part of it has to do with some of these checks that we're doing, we're
Right.
watching we're promoting hey, keep them safe. This is to keep them safe.
And
And
not only
it's
that,
working.
though, your education in the schools. I mean, every Tuesday when you're teaching these students about drug and alcohol prevention and then the compliance checks, those things go together to make a big difference. And
Right.
for our people listening right now or watching online, there is no way around it. I know the statistics. Almost every one of you watching or listening right now have been impacted by this in one way or another. It was either a friend, a coworker, a husband, a wife, a child, a parent, a grandparent. Someone has been affected by drunk driving, drugs, alcohol. It's either happened to a family member or you got hit by someone in an accident or something happened because of substance abuse. And so it's important.
Right.
It affects jobs, it wrecks lives, it changes households forever, it affects the economy. There's lots of job loss over it. So we're going to be talking more about this. And as a matter of fact, on our next segment, we're going to be talking about a no meth campaign that Autumn's involved in. So we want you to stay with us. And I'll do this. I'll always give you our phone number in case you're listening. You want more information about retirement income planning, how to keep your assets safe, how to keep you protected from the what ifs. What if you're driving down the road, everything's great and happy, and then boom, you get hit by someone and it totally, completely changes your life. Are you financially protected from things like that? What would you do? So call us at any time. Our number is 866-780-SAFE. That's 866-780-7233. Call and ask for a free financial consultation. When we meet, I'll give you a copy of my material, my best-selling books, and we will take a step-by-step approach to getting you moving in the right direction. Remember, 866-780-7233, and there's always someone standing by to take your call. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us on the show today. Now, my daughter Autumn is with us, and she works in a drug and alcohol prevention program all throughout Missouri, in 7 specific counties in Missouri. And I want her to talk about the safe and sober games. Now, you always know when you're having one of your game nights because you send me pictures and you've got pizza laid out and there's a bunch of people there. Tell us about the safe and sober games that you promote throughout the state.
Yes. So part of the PFS grant that I direct, kind of one of the rules that we had for the 5-year grant was that we had to help promote the No Mo Meth campaign. And that's Mo as in MO, Missouri.
Yes.
So I'm promoting this No Mo Meth campaign. And by doing so, I do billboards. I actually have started doing podcast ads that play the No Mo Meth commercials. We do
Right.
radio ads. We do TV ads on streaming services like Hulu. But part of it was to create a social event that young adults could go to where it's drug free, there's no
Yeah.
alcohol, you can meet new people, you can hang out, play games. I know a different PRC, which is a prevention resource center.
Okay.
They are doing grocery bingo. That's what they decided to do. And that's been
Okay.
pretty successful for them. But I thought, what do I like to do? Because I'm kind of in that young adult age. I'm getting pretty old, but I
Close
am
to
still
30. We're not.
30 is fastly approaching me. I'm almost over the hill.
That's right.
And so I'm like, what do I like to do? What did I like to do in college? So I decided to do games, game nights, game days, because they're usually during the day, actually. And I came up with the name Safe and Sober. And so in the county that had the worst statistics for meth use, I chose that county. And there's actually a college there. I was like, okay, well, that fits the age group.
Yeah.
So I got in contact with the college and the student director and made a really great relationship with them. And I said, okay, I don't know if this is going to work, but let's try it, see how many people show up, and we'll go
Yeah.
from there. Because
Yeah.
this is kind of like guinea pigging for the state. Does a meth prevention program work? So that's
Yeah.
what I'm doing with this grant. So if it doesn't work, that's actually good news for the state. They can say, okay, that doesn't work. Let's move on. So I'm guinea pigging this. I had 35 people show up to the first one, which I thought was really good.
First,
considering it's
yeah,
young adults that could be doing anything else that don't know what to expect. I'm like,
yeah.
okay, I'll take it. 35 people, that's pretty good. We now we have not stopped doing it every month since then, and that was September of 21.
Okay.
We have not missed a month. Even in the summer, we do these events and we have people show up. I think the most we've ever had show up was 185 people, um, female and male. So that was great.
Yeah.
That was actually just this last summer. And on average, we see about 65 people.
Well,
So, I mean, and that's every event.
that's pretty amazing to me considering COVID and what it did to the world. And this has been going on since 21 and the whole public
Mhm.
gathering. And you've had 60 on average people showing up to as much as 185. And this is people coming together to celebrate being drug free, no meth. I mean, I know you live in the Benton County area and I know it's meth use is prevalent. Just stop anywhere in Benton County or talk to anyone from there and mega drug use, and you're going to see someone smile at the gas station with the meth smile. And so
Yes.
it's a big deal. It's a big deal that's impacting parenting and
Yeah.
families and children who are now having to live with their grandchildren, which we're going to talk more about on the show today. But hey,
Yeah.
listen, when we come back from the break, it potential warning for there to be some emotion involved, because we're going to talk about my grandchildren and some very unique things happened when they were both born. And we're going to be talking about Autumn, not just as my firstborn child, as a wife, but also as a mother. So today we're going to be talking about all these things. We want you to stay with us on the show. Our number is 866-780-SAFE. We want all of you to be safe. That's 866-780-7233. And there's someone standing by right now to take your call. Well, for those of you joining us today, if you missed the first half of the show, that's okay. This is actually a podcast. This is actually a video interview, so you can actually watch this. If you're listening on the radio right now, you hear part of this and you're like, hey, this doesn't sound like the typical Safe Money radio show with Brad. They're talking about things they don't normally talk about. Yeah, this is a special show with my daughter Autumn on the show with us. And you can just go to YouTube, type in Brad Pistole Safe Money Radio. You can rewind, pause, watch any parts of this that you want to. But this part of the show is going to be pretty special. So if you've called in and you have a copy of my newest best-selling book, Bulletproof: The Safe and Secure Retirement Income Plan, you know that the last chapter of that book, chapter 8, is called Pursuing What Matters Most, and it's about the birth of my first grandchild. And so, Autumn, why don't you tell us? I mean, I know we got to keep this short. It's one segment, but what happened the day August was born? We call him Augie. What in the world was going on in the world, and what happened that day?
So we were right in the middle of COVID, weren't we?
Right in the middle of it.
Right in the middle of it. And we are in the freezing cold month of January, and everything is shut down, and I have not been able to have anyone with me at my appointments. And I obviously had permission for my husband, Ethan, to be there at the birth of Augie. And I was induced. He was 2 weeks late in Augie style. And we go in and everything's going pretty good. And actually, my water broke on its own when we got there. That was awesome. Things are going pretty good. I tried to go unmedicated, which we now know, don't do that. Don't do it.
Autumn's favorite
There's no,
word in the U.S. language, epidural.
yeah,
Yeah.
we love an epidural.
Okay.
So for whatever prideful, foolish reason, I thought I could do an unmedicated birth. I got to the bitter end and begged for that epidural, which did not work.
Yeah.
They had to re-administer it. By that point, it was time to push, and my husband Ethan has a condition where he has chronic migraines, and the stress, things that he can't control with his own health, just played a toll that day, and he was not doing good. He was doing worse than me. And He truly was. And it wasn't just like the cliche, movie where you see the husband being fanned off and like falling on the ground, passing out while the wife is giving birth. He really was like that, but it was totally due to other things. And
Yeah.
so dad got called in to be a superhero.
And I was
And
90
I
minutes away. So,
Yeah. I don't
yeah.
know how you got there as fast as you did, but, I was kind of near blacking out. Augie was not coming out very he wasn't we
Yeah.
weren't doing good. We were, like, really close to a C-section, and, so Ethan's not doing well, and they actually had to remove him from the room, and
They thought he had
I'm
COVID.
like,
Yep. They panicked and
"Yeah."
thought he had COVID. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
and he didn't. It was just like yeah, it was bad.
Yeah.
So he's removed and I'm like blacking out and I just kind of look over and I kind of thought I had died. But I
Yeah.
just see your face like looking over me and I'm like, what is going on?
Like, here we go. We can do this. So I walk
Yeah,
in,
he
like,
grabbed
getting past the
yeah,
getting past the front gates was something because, as you know, during COVID, they wouldn't let you in. And so
right,
as they tried to tell me I wasn't going to get in, I said, ma'am, I appreciate you and your job, but I can tell you this, my daughter is in there giving birth to my first grandchild and her husband's extremely sick. And I'm going past that sign, whether you let me in or not. So are we going to be a team
yeah,
here? Boy, she picks up the
right,
phone. 5 seconds later, I'm back there and I walk right in. And a few minutes later, Augie's born.
um,
Right. So,
right, yes, and it was tough, but
yeah.
he was so healthy. He was just a little
Yes.
stubborn, as
Yeah.
he is to this day.
Yes.
I don't
Yes.
know where he gets it from. I
Yeah.
have no idea. It's just the weirdest thing. And so yeah, it all ended up being really great. And Ethan ended up being fine.
Yeah.
It was a long night for him, but the next day he was
He was
feeling a
okay.
lot better. So, but
He
that was a really hard day.
he survived. And then I know we don't have a lot of time for this, and I don't want to cut Daisy's time short, but then we go to baby
Mhm,
number 2, and that's a day we certainly weren't expecting. Same hospital, chapter 2,
mhm.
new baby, little girl this time. Ethan's there, no headaches. He's doing great. He's coaching along, and I got to be there too. And
Mhm.
then she's born, totally different. Labor's like that quick. She comes right out, and Daisy's
No
not
hiss.
breathing.
Right.
And they immediately take her over and put her in an incubator. It's what I call it. The lights are all on. Nurses are everywhere. I'm over there watching, and I'll
Awesome.
never forget because Autumn's laying over there in the bed. She's just giving birth. Ethan's sitting there. They're looking at me because I followed over and was right there. And we went through the most trying 2 hours of my life after that, as we're not knowing what's going to happen, which then
Mhm.
ended up with her being life flighted from the hospital. We literally all were over at the windows with our hands on the windows, praying for her, praying for the helicopter. And we watched Daisy be helicoptered up into the sky and taken off to Kansas City. And wow, what a life changing experience that I then stayed the night at the hospital with Autumn. You can see the expressions on her face right now if you're watching. Ethan took off in the car with his mom and straight to Kansas City. We had to spend the night in the
Yes.
hospital for Autumn to get released. And then I drove her there all the way the next day, and we got to go up to the NIC unit, and I got to be there with Autumn as she's holding her sweet little Daisy, who is just, if you come to my office, I got grandkid pictures everywhere, the biggest, brightest, most beautiful blue eyes you've ever seen on planet Earth. You've got to see Daisy's
Yes.
eyes. And we will have her
Yes.
on the show one day. So
Yes, you will. I haven't talked about that story in a while, so it's like hitting me.
yeah, yeah. Well, then that's why I chose to tell the second one. So being there and being through all that, we want you to know this as you're listening, as you're watching. It, like I said before, it doesn't matter what family you're from, what your family of origin is. Everyone has been affected by tragedy in life. We've been through some incredible things. I had a brain tumor when I was 27 years old. That's not supposed to happen. 25-year survivor from that now. We lost my father a couple of years ago. That was a very difficult thing. He worked in our practice. Many of you knew him and loved him. That was very, very hard on Autumn and Hunter. We then went through the birth with Augie during COVID and the weirdness of all that, not being able to get in the hospitals. No one could be there with you. Then we have Daisy be life flighted off, and all of that in the middle of our work in this world where Autumn and her husband do this ministry. They really do, through the drug and alcohol prevention through schools for ages 6 to
Mm-hmm.
29. And there's a lot involved in our world, and it impacts families. It impacts their marriages. It impacts their economics, and impacts their
Mm-hmm.
relationships with their parents and grandparents, which is what we're going to focus in on the last two segments of the show. So stay with us. Our number's 866-780-SAFE. That's 866-780-7233. You can call in anytime, ask for our information. We'll be more than happy to help you. Okay, so Autumn, we've talked about a lot of things, talking about your work in the community, your work with the schools, your work in drug and alcohol prevention, the No More Meth program, the Safe and Sober Games program, all some pretty phenomenal stuff. But I want to talk about this because in our last segment, we talked about you being a mother now and having your own two, your new little baby
Mm-hmm.
Daisy and Augie, who's 3.5 and 150,000 miles an hour all day long, every day. I want to talk
Yeah.
about how it impacts young families, both working, to have to care for their children every day. Because I recently had a younger family come in. You know, most of my families that call in are in their 50s, 60s, 70s. But I had a young family
Right.
come in and they wanted to meet. And they had two young children just like you. And they told me what they were spending on daycare. And I nearly
Mm-hmm.
flipped my lid. So talk to us about what
Yeah.
it's like raising kids and the expenses
Mm-hmm.
involved, daycare and that sort of thing in today's world.
Well, to start, being a mom has been truly the biggest blessing, best thing that's ever happened to me.
Yeah.
It helps having a really great husband and a really great father to my kids, great
Yes.
grandparents and family. It does take a village,
Yes.
but we're very involved in church, and that also helps. So being a mom is amazing. I love it. It makes everything worthwhile because then it's like, then why am I doing all of this? Daycare is amazing. So we actually are really, really blessed. We
Okay.
have a private nanny involved in a nanny share program. So basically, August and Daisy, they share a nanny with another family,
Okay.
and they take turns going over to our house, over to their house, just kind of depending on the schedules, what's going on. But it's great. Her name's Taylor. We love Taylor. She's awesome. She has taught them so many things, and it's not just like a babysitter sitting there on her phone watching them. Like, she's really involved with them. However, yeah, it's expensive. it's it's like, wow, are we working to pay for daycare? Or are
Yeah.
we putting our kids in daycare to work? Or what? It's a cycle. So yeah, it's been a pill to swallow, but it's like you want the best care for your kids. Ethan and I, during COVID, our offices were given to nurses.
Okay.
So we work from home primarily now. Obviously, I'm on the road a lot. I'm going to
Yeah.
schools, I'm going to gas stations, I'm going to the college to do the event. Ethan, is on the road a lot for meetings because he's more on the admin side. He's not so much boots on the ground. His team kind of does that part. So
Yeah.
we're on the road. But really, here at home is our office. And so we really have to have the kids taken care of in a good environment while we work, while we do things like this. You can't have your kids right next to you. So
And
we have had to really put forward, part of our income for that. And it changes your life for sure. And it really makes you stop and go, okay, do I really need that iced coffee?
yeah.
And you
Right.
know me, I actually really do need it.
You better hope she gets that coffee. If you're, I'm just saying, you better hope she gets it.
But I've had to make some hard decisions certain days going, all right, you know what? No, the kids are more important than my
Yeah.
caffeine addiction. So
Well, tell us
yeah.
what's daycare cost for two kids? And I know you don't do it every day, so just give us an example
Right.
for our listeners, the expense of daycare.
So as I said, certain weeks can be a little different just depending on schedules, but on an
Yeah.
average, we're looking at $420 a week.
Yeah. That's what shocked me. You didn't, those of you listening right now, 420 a week is what she said. The family that I
Mm-hmm.
met with that had 2 young children, they said daycare for them was $800 a month. And I just let that sit in and impact me. I'm thinking, okay, I'm seeing their bottom line. I see how much married joint filing income they have. And I'm thinking 800 times 12. Wow, that's almost 10 grand a year they're spending on just daycare. That's not food,
Yeah.
clothing, doctor's visits, dentists, everything else. So I want to share something with you because I was talking about this today. I read an article last night while doing a little bit of research for the show. I don't want to just share my opinions with you. I want to share some research. According to a 2023 study from AARP, we all know what AARP is. More than 7.1 million grandparents are living with their grandchildren. I want to read that again.
Mm.
More than 7.1 million grandparents are living with their grandchildren. More than 2.3 million of these grandparents are fully responsible for their grandchildren. 1/3 of the children are younger than the age of 6. Now, I'll share this
Mm.
example. One of the things I think people appreciate about this show, I've been hosting it for more than 15 years now. I'm an open book. I share very much so what I do in my life, my personal life, with my own finances. I've talked about my farms, my 401ks, my IRAs, my annuities, my life insurance. I own lots of different things. But I also talk about personal things like this. Hey, in 2024, I did something I thought I would never do. I sold a home that I loved. I purchased a home and I moved when I said I will never move again. But there's a reason why I did it. And I did it because of things like this. I did it to provide
Mm-hmm.
a place for my entire family. I lost my father 2 years ago. My mother lives on her own 3.5 hours away. I wanted a place where Autumn, who's on the show today, where her and her husband, her 2 children could come and stay extended periods of time because they live 2 hours away. My son and
Mm-hmm.
my daughter-in-law and my new grandbaby here, Georgia Grace, who's been on the show, I wanted a place where we could all be together. So here, where I bought the home, everyone has a place to stay, their own room, their own wing, their own floor, whatever you want to call it. But I did that because to help out with children and grandchildren. And I know that, Autumn, I know you guys spend a lot of time with Ethan's parents also, and you stay at their place some. You guys have great jobs, great careers. You make great money. That by the same
Mm-hmm.
token, it is extremely expensive to raise children in today's world.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think about that, and you think about whether or not you can buy coffee today, or of course, coffee's $10 a cup now versus what it used to be
It
50
is.
cents years ago.
Right.
But I'll
Right.
say this for those of you listening. Here's a powerful thing for those of you wanting to do estate planning, not just keep your money safe, but you probably have bought into the idea from listening to people like me that it's not about what you leave once you're gone. Legacy is not what you leave to someone, it's what you leave in them that counts. And what matters is helping now while they need it the most. So in 2024, the gifting limit per child is $18,000. Now, I know that a lot of you are thinking, oh, well, there's no way I could give my kids $18,000, but some of you can. Why leave it in your estate? Why wouldn't you help them now? I was able to do that last year as a Thanksgiving, Christmas gift for my children, give them gifts, help them with things now instead of when I'm gone. Hey, it's not only 18,000 per child. So you can give that to every child, but your spouse can do that too. So you can give up to $36,000 per child for as many children as you want to. And in your planning, you may not know that that's possible, but you can do that without experiencing any gift tax. And so it's important. I mean, I know we're covering a lot of information today, and we only have one segment left and only a few minutes left, but I want you to stay with us because when we wrap this all up, it's really, really important. Our number is 866-780-SAFE. That's 866-780-7233. Call in anytime. Ask for our information. Ask for a free consultation. We'll be glad to help. Okay, friends, we're wrapping up the show today. And I knew this beforehand that I'm going to have Autumn back on again. I know I'm going to hear from you, and they're going to be like, oh, that was great. You got to have Autumn back on. And we'll be able to go more into the things that she works with and is involved in and how it impacts families. But I want to say this before I kick it over to Autumn to let her talk about this some, that the impact and the power of what she does, helping with drug and alcohol prevention, no more meth programs, the safe and sober games, talking to our kids in the school system, the impact of drugs and alcohol on family members.
Mhm.
Wow, it affects, when you think about a lot of grandparents. We read in the last episode or the last segment, 7.1 million grandparents are living with their children and grandchildren now. 2.3 million are directly responsible for their grandchildren. It's just the grandparents and the grandchildren. Why is that? Well, I looked it up last night. What is it that's causing grandparents to be so involved? Number one, it's what we've been talking about on the show today: substance abuse. Normally because of their children. The grandparents'
Mhm.
children, the parents, are involved in substance abuse. Number two, incarceration. They're in jail. And then number three,
Yep.
death. Things like COVID, 140,000 COVID deaths for age group of parents with young children. And so now all these grandparents involved. So Autumn, what kind of things are you seeing? I mean, you can talk about whatever you want to, is we've got about 3 minutes left here, but the economic impact, how many grandparents you see involved in grandchildren's lives. Talk about this for a minute.
The school that I'm at right now, I see a lot of grandparents, a lot
Yeah.
of aunts and uncles being the guardians of these kids. Maybe
Yes.
that's partly why I'm seeing some questionable and alarming behavior from these kids, because they're not having that one-on-one time with their parents. Now, I had great grandparents,
Yeah.
still have a great mama. So if they solely raised me, I think it would be a different story. I'm not saying that these grandparents or aunts and uncles aren't fit. That's not what I'm saying. But the connection between child and their parents is so strong, and when those parents are abusing drugs and alcohol, excuse me, are incarcerated,
Yeah.
yeah, you're gonna have that lack of emotional support. And so I see these students, these freshmen, these 14 and 15-year-olds that are about to be driving. They are vaping in the bathrooms. They're being put in ISS, OSS every other week for disrespect.
Yeah.
They're cheating on, I had second week. I said, "Hey, where's so and so?" He got caught cheating on a test and got a 0, got kicked off the football team. And it's like, ugh, why are we here? I mean, yes, these are things that you see, that we've seen over the years, but like, it is just so, it's everywhere. It's almost every student right now. In
Yes.
each hour that I teach, I can pick out one student that I will say they'll go on to be something. And
Hmm.
that's no joke.
Yeah.
There's one in each class. The others are just, they're forgettable. They're in ISS and OSS every other time I'm there. They
Yeah.
were vaping in the bathroom right before class started. And we're not just talking nicotine. They're vaping marijuana.
Yeah.
And then they're walking into class.
Right.
The teacher, he told me, "Hey, so and so, she's not going to be here today. She's in ISS." And I said, "Darn it, what happened?" "Well, she got caught vaping." I said, "Dang it, she's 14." He goes,
Yeah.
"Oh, Autumn, she's been doing it since 5th grade." Yeah.
And that's
So
just
that's
what
what I'm
they,
saying.
yeah, that's just what they know of. Well, listen,
Mhm.
like I said, Autumn, I'm so grateful, so proud of you. Such a great wife and mother, and what you do in the community is so important. So thank you for being on the show today. But we didn't even scratch the surface of the things we could talk about. And how does this all relate to financial planning? Well, in major, major ways. There's so much anxiety, there's so much expense,
Oh,
like we talked about, when it comes to drug and alcohol abuse, and the incarcerations, the deaths, how it impacts the families, the grandparents, the parents, their economic status can cause losing jobs, being laid off from jobs, having to move. It impacts things all the way around. And these kids are the future of this country. They're the people who are going to be contributing to the Social Security plan. They're going to have 401ks. They're going to inherit trillions of dollars from their parents and grandparents, mainly grandparents. Okay. Because so many of these issues are happening with today's young people's parents, and that gap's being filled
mhm.
by grandparents, those listening to the show right now. But we're on the verge of some fantastic things happening in this country. We're at the end of 2024. We're about to make America great again. We are
Yes,
grateful
we
for
are.
all of you who believe in this country, who voted to say enough is enough. We're changing things. We're moving in a different direction. And we are here to help you keep your family safe, keep your money safe, keep your wealth protected. To talk about estate planning and income planning, we're here to help. Call us anytime, 866-780-SAFE. That's 866-780-7233. We love you. We care about you and your family. Thank you for joining us today. Everyone say bye to Autumn. Autumn, thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
And you guys have a great, fantastic, blessed week. 866-780-7233. There's always someone standing by to take your call. God bless.